Shwmai a croeso cynnes, and welcome to the What's Your Story podcast. I'm James Owen, a Welsh filmmaker and storyteller, and I'm passionate about sharing stories. This podcast is all about business owners sharing their journey, and we'll be speaking with directors, entrepreneurs and creatives from all across Wales to learn from their experiences. We believe everyone has a story to tell. What's your story? Shwmai and welcome to the next episode of What's Your Story. An exciting guest on the podcast today. Really pleased to welcome somebody I've had the pleasure of working with on some of the film projects here in Stori, Cymru. We have the senior leader of Towy Community Church, and as well as the Xcel Project. It is Mr. Paul Griffiths. Diolch am dod ar y podcast.
Diolch am cael fi yma bore yma.
That's all right.
For having me.
That's all right. It's good. And we've had a lot of Swansea guests, so it's nice to get somebody from West Wales over.
Well, West is best, isn't it?
Ah.
Okay, so what can I say?
West is best. That is so true. So, Paul, for those who are listening and watching the podcast, could you just give us a brief summary in 2 or 3 sentences, who you are, what you're currently doing? I'm sure they'd love to hear all about it.
My name is Paul Griffiths. I'm the senior leader of Towy Community Church, which also encompasses Xcel Project. So we're a little bit different to most churches in as much as we have a bowling alley and a number of community projects. So I oversee all of that together and also pastor a church. So I have quite a varied life and a varied week, actually, especially today, spending time with you, you know.
It's nice. It's nice. Do the church know you're coming today?
I think they do.
Well, they'll find out
when they see it.
They will. No, it's good. So, I guess that's a great opportunity that, you get to both be in the community, as well as looking after and shepherding the people in your church. So, no day must be ever the same in your line of work, I guess.
No, it's not, because, I mean, from the perspective of being a minister of a church and pastoring a church, there are people you walk with every day who are a part, maybe, of your church, but I suppose what I've seen through the project, and we employ about 50 people, is about 100 volunteers on site, is there's an element of pastoral care that happens there as well. You know, so suddenly your church family has grown far wider. And I suppose for most churches, then they'd love to be in that place where the community, even though they might not attend your church services, are still a part of people that you pastor every day and a part of their lives, you know. So it's a far wider context than what most people in maybe a church ministry will be.
Yeah, brilliant. And I know you've got a heart for pastoral care, but did you ever think growing up you were going to be a pastor?
Oh, that's a good question. I think from the age of about 16, 17, yes. So I always knew that, but I suppose sometimes waiting for the right opportunities. Did a lot of work with churches and schools work and stuff. So I found myself in my early life doing jobs that enabled me to have the freedom at the same time to do church work, really. So a career wasn't a big motivational factor for me. But any job would do, as long as it would give me the ability to maybe have time off, whether it was back in those days doing schools work, school assemblies and things like that, you know. So I've always, you know, thought and maybe felt a bit of that calling into that direction.
Brilliant. I mean, I'm quite passionate about serving in the local church, and one of the reasons that I built Stori Cymru was to be able to do that and have the time to dedicate to serving others, and for me to produce films for churches is a huge opportunity for me.
You did a great job for us, to be honest.
Thank you. I didn't pay him to say that, but no, it was a pleasure to work with Towy Community Church and see what an incredible impact they're doing in the community. And we'll get into the Xcel Project and hear all about it. Is it fair to say you're a musician?
Yes, I'm a musician. And a singer. So I have 2 brothers, one who is identical to me, so I'm an identical twin, and the other brother Andrew. And for years, not only did we go out singing quite a bit when we were younger, but we were a brass section. So we would do work for TV, Canu Gymru, which is still going on. We used to work for Mal Pope, do a lot of his TV shows, a lot of S4C stuff. So did that for about 10 years. Not enough for it to be a full-time job. But when you don't have a mortgage, you can do things that you enjoy doing without the pressure, you know. So did that for years, and a lot of leading worship in churches and conferences across the UK. So did that for a number of years.
Brilliant. So you've probably done anything you can think of from a volunteer perspective. You've been cleaning, you've been stacking chairs, you've been setting PA up. You kind of know what it takes to run a third sector organisation, that's for sure.
Definitely. And I think, you know, whether it's a church environment or a voluntary sector environment within the community, a lot of these things happen because of volunteers, all right? So whether it's a church environment, it would have been, you know, getting to a hall at 7:30 on a Sunday morning, pulling all the gear in, setting it all up and going through it all, you know. But sometimes in those things as well, there's a tremendous happiness and joy based on the people you're doing that with as well, you know, and the laugh you'd have setting things up, you know. So, yeah, I mean, it can be hard work. And I think, strange enough, we'll most probably talk about this a bit later, when it comes to volunteers, it's important that they feel they volunteer to the extent that they gain something themselves through it, and it doesn't become to feel like a job. You know, so, and I've never felt it like a job in some of the things I've done like that. So that's important.
Absolutely. That's great. Yeah, we'll touch on that because I think it's really important that maybe some of the listeners can really understand how they can empower volunteers and how they can feel valued. Because in charities, churches, any sort of organisation in the third sector heavily rely on volunteers.
Oh, massive.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the Xcel story. So for those of you that don't know, there is a fantastic bowling alley based in Carmarthen. And I love talking about this. I actually shared this at an event I was speaking at a couple of months ago. You wouldn't know this, so this is hot off the press. But I was sharing the Xcel Project as a bit of a case study in some of the films that we did to some key people in the community. And it's great to share that. But Xcel Bowl, it is firstly a bowling alley, and it's a part of the overall Xcel Project. So tell me, what was the sort of the start of the story of the Xcel?
So around about 2008, 2009, so there's the bowling alley is in an old cheese packing factory, St Ivel in Johnstone in Carmarthen. And the pastor of the church at the time, Mark Bennett, he'd gone to the county council because they owned the building. It had closed a number of years before. And he'd gone and asked them, could we have a part of the building so we could use it as a church? They said yes, but it wouldn't be a long lease. And actually, if I was to take you to the site and look back then, there was a lot of work to do in it. So the problem is with a short lease, the investment for us to turn a building around wouldn't be worth it. So with conversations back and forth, they said, well, they planned on a site on being a recreational facility for the community. What they'd wanted was a bowling alley there, okay? And when St Catherine's Walk in Carmarthen was developed, the plan was to have a bowling alley up there, but it never materialised on that site. So they planned on maybe doing something similar, but recreational on the site where we are now. So that's when Mark, our pastor, at the time, had this crazy idea and went back to them and said, well, if we as a church were to build a bowling alley there, would that secure the site for us? And obviously these are conversations over time back and forth, right? So they came back and said, yes, it would, Mark. He said, actually, you do a lot of work in the community already. If you to use the profit from that bowling alley to run some of your community projects, and even though we were coming out of we're in austerity again now, okay, but we were coming out of a time of austerity, there was grant funding pots in place. And if we were to use the profit from the bowling alley to run those community projects, we could access some of those grant pots. And in total, it was nearly 2 million. So it was quite a lot. But that was a story in itself. You're talking then, so you're going from a church who do church stuff, and then suddenly you're having to get architects involved, get business plans done. Oh, it was a lot of work. And, the team at the time, they did a lot. But over a period of 2 or 3 years, we got to a place where we secured some of the funding. And that was a difficult journey, I'm gonna say. I mean, Mark, I think, I know this is maybe somewhat of a story, but a business podcast to an extent of different things, And most entrepreneurs, I will say, are risk takers. Okay?
I'm one of those, for sure.
You most probably are, right? The risk takers. But also, often, I've seen that in growing churches, you will have leadership in place who are prepared to step out. Now, in our religious terms, we will call that faith. Okay? We will call that faith. But people who have an entrepreneurial spirit, who are leading churches, will also have growing churches because they're prepared to step out. Now, we will say we step out in faith because we believe God has maybe shown us the direction. But for people who are entrepreneurs of businesses, they'll see that as, right, we're prepared to take risks, to move things on.
Leap of faith, that's something common.
It is, definitely, to do that. So during those years, there were some quite significant leaps of faith. The church had to raise $500,000. And imagine going to the bank, the church, and asking your bank manager for a £500,000 loan because you want to run a bowling alley. Okay? It doesn't quite, the computer says no, doesn't it? You're looking at it, no, not going to go through, okay?
So the bank didn't give you money?
No, well, they wouldn't. So we went for a year looking like the project was going to finish because even though we had all the grant funding in place, our contribution had to be about $500,000 into all that, and we couldn't get any more grant money. Long and short of it, Lloyd's Bank on a local level agreed to lend us money, and then Carmarthen County Council gave us a commercial loan. And with those two coming together, we managed to get things going. But, that was, $500,000 is still a lot, So that was a lot for the church at the time. And there were many times during that where maybe people questioned, maybe this is a step too far, But of course, you were with us last year, and we're 11 years down the line now. So, it's been a big time. But that took about 2 years just to get to a place because the contractors are not going to move on site. Nothing can start until all the money is in place. But we got there in the end, and just to Mark, the pastor at the time, he kept going, and we never questioned it. We had a great leader, and we all followed. And actually, when you see it now today, as you've seen it, it's amazing to see that it all comes together.
A lot of hard work went into getting that in place and establishing that. And I wouldn't have seen the groundwork or the background stuff that happened to get the money and, to ask your church congregation to contribute, to get maybe initially denied by lenders. That would have been really tough because grant projects will only fund the work if you can get, you're right, all the money there.
All the money there, and what you find is that, fair, to the congregation at the time, often there'd be maybe architect's bills and stuff like that, prelim work that had to be done before you, sometimes work has to be done even before you get to that grant stage. And so, you'd be asking the congregation, special offerings, help us to get the money to pay for some of those reports that needed to be done even beforehand, So it was, challenging times, but
you probably had some generous people who were prepared to help build this.
Oh, yeah. Some people who put significantly above and beyond what they really should have put in on the line, So, yeah.
But they believed in that vision.
They did, and they still do today, which are still very much a part of it all,
So to put it simply, right, what I'm hearing, because I don't see, especially internationally, the local authority have a very difficult relationship with local businesses. That's my personal opinion from my learnt experience with other peers in the town. But you literally ask the council, can we have this unit for a long-term lease if we build you a bowling alley?
Yes, so long and short of it, yes. But at the time, I mean, sometimes things are in place. So we have, at the time, the Welsh Government launched a fund called the Asset Transfer Fund. And that's a fund that enables third sector organisations to take a building that's under council ownership, as long as that's then used for community benefit. In our case, we have a 100-year lease on the site. We now have 89 years left on that lease. That's
you
long. I am. That's long enough to be able to do something significant in town. But also, relationships, whether that's council-based or anything, take time to develop and trust. So, Towy as a church had been doing things in the community for a number of years. So that does help because, it takes time to just build that relationship and trust so that if you say you're going to do something, they believe that you're going to do it, And it did take, it takes that time. Now we have a great relationship with the county council, but we're also providing, to some extent, some services that could or might have been within the remit of a county council to do, But in our case, we have a facility that's open, a great facility, community facility, that helps fund some of the other projects into Carmarthen to change lives. Our logo or banner is reaching people, changing lives. So that encompasses everything we try and do through all parts of it. So, but we've got a good relationship. Maybe it might be different in Echi.
Have you got some contacts for me?
Yes, we probably have. Yeah,
probably. Yeah, great. So, okay, Xcel Bowl then. Let's talk about that because Xcel Project's the overall community project. But it's fair to say that the bowling alley is the driving force, especially for funding all this stuff, isn't it? So I'm sure the bowling alley would have faced a lot of challenges. I'm sure it does today, as most high street leisure retail businesses are all facing footfall challenges, austerity. But you've overcome a lot. I think lockdown would have been probably maybe one of your biggest challenges.
I would have said lockdown was massive because in our case, our funding mechanism was closed overall for nearly a year. In fact, bowling alleys were one of the last places that could open up after lockdown. I suppose some of you will remember the first summer after the first lockdown, some places opened up. You had the eat out scheme that the government put in place. So even though our bowling alley was open, we could only open at half capacity. We have 12 lanes, only 6 lanes open, and our eating area was half the size because of social distancing. We had a very busy August that year, but at half capacity. And it was very challenging. In fact, we were at 1.6 weeks away from losing everything. It was the hardest meeting I've ever had to have with staff and sit down and say, guys, I need you to know we might not make it through this. And the problem we had was that we were losing, somewhere between 10 and 20,000, maybe a little bit more, some per month, because there was no money coming in, was there? There was no funding mechanism. We're not a rich church. In fact, the church could have never have sustained what we have done socially. It's the bowling alley that helped do all that. And suddenly your funding mechanism was closed. So it became really, really difficult. In the end, because Carmarthenshire are our landlords to an extent, obviously we let them know what we were doing. And we had a £50,000 grant from Carmarthenshire because, again, this funds some of the social work, doesn't it? So you've got the food bank, you've got the money advice, all those things that are running. And then we had a £50,000 added to the loan we already have in place. So that enabled us to carry on. But at the time, that was, for us, a bit of a miracle situation because it didn't look like things were going to continue. And it was tough, extremely tough. Lots of sleepless nights, James, I've got to say.
What was it like for you? Last year, we were celebrating 10 years of the Xcel Project, Xcel Bowl, invited people in the community to come and celebrate. What was that like for you, looking back after 10 years of hard work?
Where did that 10 years go? Let me tell you. It absolutely flew. the time just went. One, to see the bowling alley actually succeeding what it was there to do, which was help. One, as you saw when you were there, is still a great community venue. It's well looked after. Today, if you were to go there today, there'd be different groups there this morning, from old age groups to some disabled groups who use it throughout the day. A lot of bowling alleys wouldn't have that type of custom because what you can see in it, it happens to be, I think, more of a community venue, okay, that happens to have a bowling alley in it. So it's not necessarily that people will come in just to bowl. They'll come in to have coffee, sit down, have a chat, meeting space. It's become all of that really in Johnstown. And that's why we have so many different types of community groups using it. But after the 10 years, to see it still being used like that and developed, and for the community to see it, well, places like that only work if the community see it as their space as well. Because if they don't come in and use it, you've got no business at the end of the day, And a lot of local businesses, there are many local businesses across West Wales. Those who've succeeded for a long period of time do link in with the community around them. Either offer great customer service, they're either great at doing what they do, really reliable. Because in small communities like West Wales, you don't exist unless you're offering something really good and consistent to the community, because they'll go somewhere else. So I think over the period of the years, it's been great to see them come in every week.
Brilliant. So that's Xcel Bowl, thriving and succeeding, to celebrate 10 years of no matter what challenges you've faced, you managed to come out the other side and grow. And I'm sure there's lots more planned in the Xcel Project. There's a lot of exciting things going on with different projects that you help in the community. But yeah, this bowling alley helps fund a food bank, a furniture store, a debt counselling advice service. That's incredible for me. It's great to see that those profits are being used in this project to help other people. So I'd love to hear, what are some of the sort of success stories that are already happening with some of those projects outside of the bowling?
So beyond the furniture, beyond the bowling alley, you've got Xcel Furniture. Now, Xcel Furniture is a reuse furniture centre. What you've got, obviously, people from the community will phone us up and maybe they don't want their sofa anymore, or beds, could be white goods like washing machine, things like that, cookers, anything like that. So they can donate it in and we will collect it. We collect it for free. Okay? There are two things that happen. So, from the perspective of recycling, that's great. We have quite a lot coming in. Okay, so that's a lot of that stuff might end up going to landfill or anything. Okay, so we've been doing this for over 10 years, so loads of stuff comes in like that. But there's two prongs. So one, we sell that then at low cost. Okay, so we've got a great centre there open where you can go in. You could pick up a three-piece suite for, from about £50-60 upwards. Okay. Sometimes things are about £400, but maybe that's a three-piece suite that could have been 2,500-3,000. So there's still great buys for those. Okay, so we'll sell it on, help it. So that'll be at low cost. So that helps that way. But also we'll give the furniture away as well. Now we have around about 80 agencies across Carmarthen who are linked in with us. So that could be from schools, social services, doctors, nurses, health visitors, you name it, right across the board. And they'll also have vouchers for our food bank as well. Now, the reason why I mentioned the food bank in this is that that area behind the bowling alley where we have all these services available become like a one-stop shop, social one-stop shop to help people. Okay, so often what happens with the furniture is that maybe somebody will have come in to the food bank with us and they'll have been helped. And in chatting to that person, they'll find out maybe it's a young person who've just moved out of care into their first flat. Okay? But they've got nothing in that first flat. So maybe to start off with, we've helped them out with food. And in that conversation, we find out, all right, you moved into a flat. All right. Oh, you must need stuff. Oh, yeah, well, they've got no bedding, they've got pots and pans, everything. So what will happen in the food bank end, we'll write out a voucher of the needs there. And then we will pick out a stock. and then deliver that to that young person. Okay?
Free of charge.
Free of charge. Yeah, free of charge. So they'll have all of that. That's quite a common scenario. Okay, or someone maybe could be a woman who's had to move out of an area into an area because of domestic abuse. They move into a flat again, got nothing. They've had to leave everything behind. So again, conversations, maybe that'll come through Carmarthen domestic abuse. They'll come to us and let's can you help us with that? So we have everything, bedding, pots and pans. We've got this morning there'll be a team of between maybe about 10, just sorting through things like that. Nothing we have there it's all good quality. I will say, there's great quality control that they go through, so we don't give anything away that we wouldn't want to accept personally ourselves. So that's all done, so that helps a load there. Roughly, since we started, about a family every week in the last 11 years have received something from us, from the project. And that is based on furniture or clothing or stuff like that. Okay? Because every week for the last 11 years, someone's been helped, which I think is incredible, is amazing. Okay? We also have, to be fair, some local businesses who help us with that. So good friends of ours, Easy Books, who are a bookkeeping service here in Llanelli.
Down the road.
They help finance our vans, which is amazing. I think that's fantastic, so they help us with that. That's a way of them helping someone locally as well, but obviously it's a massive support to us in doing that. So that goes out. On the food bank side, the food bank is open with us 3 days a week. So they help roughly just over about 230 people every month with food parcels. That goes up and down during the year. Holidays normally goes up a little bit because kids maybe don't have free school meals then, so there's a bit more help that's needed there. So we have about 30 volunteers run the food bank there. So that links in with the furniture together. Always looking for food to help. There's, they're desperate in need for things there. And then obviously that also links in with why do people need food? Often there's maybe benefit delay, often there's debts. So that links in with community money advice. We deal with about £70,000 worth of debt every month. We see about 250 people a month come into Carmarthen community money advice. And we have 20 ongoing clients on our books at the moment. And in fact, we wish we could help more, but we just do not have the capacity to help any more people. But you can see the bowling alley is a great facility in itself. But what it helps is help fund and sustain some of those projects behind you. So it does overall what it says on the tin. I wouldn't say it's not challenging. We always have challenging times, let me tell you, James. But it does that, and it consistently does that every week, which is wonderful as someone leading an organisation. And even when I think about Mark Bennett back there 13, 14 years ago, envisioning this, to see that actually something that he saw and pressed into, 12, 13 years later, is doing exactly what he was supposed to do.
Wow. Great to hear some of that. And, when I was filming last year with some of these project leads, the furniture, money advice, to actually hear from them, the people they've helped, how well the furniture manager, he was blown away that he could just give a bed to someone who was absolutely in need. Literally went to visit the home, the flat, they had nothing, absolutely nothing. I think that's quite hard for us to maybe comprehend, because I know I've been through tough times myself personally. Through finances, I've been in debt, I've been there, but I've never had just nothing. I couldn't even imagine what that looks like. But to hear some of the stories that, how well has been able to gift somebody a bed, and with the money advice, some people have actually had their debt written off.
They have.
And what a weight lifted off their shoulders that must have been.
And that is massive. When you see that happening to someone who maybe isn't even leaving their So the debt is not the issue in the end. You end up with mental health issues just because of that sheer weight and burden that they're carrying. And 9 times out of 10 will be people who maybe, like an ostrich, they just put their head in the sand hoping it's going to go away, and it never goes away. They don't open any mail. They don't leave the house, nothing, and there's a spiral that happens in their lives. And then suddenly they'll get to a stage where they've had the courage, I'm going to say, to maybe go to, so we have a centre in the middle of Carmarthen called The Table, where we have a drop-in centre, maybe to turn up at a drop-in centre, and maybe initially they've just had a chat with one of our volunteers. And sometimes it takes 3 or 4 visits at drop-in centre before they have the confidence maybe to say, hey, I'm in deep trouble here. And then they'll speak to one of our advisors and then they'll help them through. But to see that weight lifted off someone, unbelievable, I've been to a house and delivered furniture, and it's just humbling to see someone like you said there who has nothing. Often, the ones I've been to often maybe have moved out of area, have the support, maybe friendship, so that someone actually loves and cares. That makes massive. There's a verse in the book of Proverbs. There's an unrelenting disappointment leads to heartache, but a sudden good turn can turn a life around. And we see that maybe on a daily occurrence when someone is, that's all they experience day by day, disappointment in different ways that they're going through in life. And suddenly, whether it's a volunteer sitting down listening to them, having a cup of coffee when they've come into the bank, somebody who's listened to them, somebody then who's able to point them in the right direction. A lot of people don't even know there's help and support out there, and they don't know where to turn, but just have somebody to listen to them and point them in that right place. A sudden good turn can turn a life around. It's a massive.
Amazing. That's great to hear. I just want to close now on some thoughts about our teams, the people that help us in our organisations. I certainly need to motivate some of my team sometimes, including my wife. I'm sure those listening and watching will maybe have people employed in their organisations. Some people listening might be involved in the third sector and will have a lot of volunteers. And I think it doesn't matter if somebody is a volunteer or they're a paid member of staff. If your goal is to get them to do something in the business, a particular task, an assignment, to jump on board the vision or the mission of that organisation, you need to still treat them as valued members of that team. And for you then, as the senior leader of both the church and the Xcel Project, how do you bring people on board that journey and make them feel just really valued and that they're part of the team, that what they put into this project is ultimately benefiting those in the community?
Definitely. I would say the key area in that is that you always show them you've got time even when you don't have the time. Okay, so whether it's through the church or through the project, my day overall starts with I'll go down to the project and I'll walk around the site. Whether that is staff or volunteers makes no difference to me who they are in that place. If a staff member wants to chat, I will stop and chat there for as long as they want to chat. Often in those times, maybe you've got to know someone, they just want to bounce something off you. Maybe something's going on in the family and they just want to maybe unburden themselves. So I'll listen to that, okay, and maybe help them. Sometimes offer prayer if I feel it's appropriate, if they want it. But it's like, for the staff that we've got, is doing our best to make sure that they know that they're valued. And it's the best way of finding that is just giving your time, but also showing them also as well that you would do anything that they're doing. Honestly, in the first 3 years, every Tuesday was my day for cleaning the toilets. Every Tuesday morning, I would do all the toilets before the staff came in, and I did that for 3 years. I've worked all the kitchens. I've done every shift going in that place. It's I would say overall, I haven't asked any of the volunteer staff to do anything I wouldn't do myself in that place. I go around every day. I'll go around to talk to the staff. If I go down to the volunteers who are organising, if they offer me a cup of coffee, I sit down and I have that cup of coffee, however long it takes.
Or however good or bad the coffee is.
That's right. Yeah, and I had a lovely coffee this morning. But I did do that. I mean, I think the greatest value the staff will see in you is the value of time that you will give to them. That's massive, massive. And that you are showing a genuine interest in their lives and what's going on in their lives. Because if staff or volunteers are seen as a commodity, right, they will go anywhere else. They won't feel they're a part of what's going on, and also won't feel that you have no interest in who they are. You know? And I mean, in my case, I'm quite pastoral, so I have a genuine interest. I want to be able to help. I want to be able to do something, you know, and listen to what's going on in their lives. But whether our staff is encouraging them and being alongside them and motivating them, telling them about some of the things we'd like to do, you know, and genuinely thanking them for when they do things really, really well. You know, we've just had a staff and volunteer bowling night together. We had everybody together for a night, everybody together in one pot. I cooked about 40 pizzas that night, I think. In fact, it could have been even more that night. I think we had pizzas and bowling all night and just a night of hanging out together. And before Christmas now, we'll be having a volunteer Christmas meal. We normally have about 50 or 60 come along to that. And that's another opportunity for me to thank everybody. And because without our paid staff and our volunteers, it could never exist. And in the church environment, you know, doing exactly the same. You know, we have a youth event tonight. That's all run by volunteers. You know, they do an incredible job for letting them know all the time that what they do.
Yeah, some lessons to learn there. I'm sure a lot can take on. I could certainly take that on board as a small business as growing. Yeah, I'm trying to do my best to make sure that my team are valued and encouraged, especially my wife again. But not only that, the people I work with and the customers definitely I engage with, and there's always an opportunity. And you know, just simply, it doesn't pay. It doesn't cost. What's the saying about kindness? You know, just being kind. It really doesn't take that much just to show people that you care. Great. I wouldn't have briefed you on this, but this podcast is all about stories and getting to hear stories in business. And we've heard a bit of a personal story happening in the town of Carmarthen today. Lots of our guests would share people who are really influential, really inspirational. I want to ask you this question, Paul. If you could sit down here now today, or could be in Carmarthen, and you could sit down and listen to somebody's story from start to finish, who might that person be? That is someone you'd love to hear their story.
Strangely enough, a man who's always motivated me, has become a good friend over the years, is Brian Jones of Castlecowell. So I've got to know Brian well over the years. And he... Castlecowell, I believe, has grown as a business because of his commitment to the local community. I've offered a great service, but Brian, who's obviously getting older now, has put his stamp on how he sees how he should be helping in the community. Because at the end of the day, business like that is only again successful if community buy from you. You know, so great customer service, everything. He's a genuine man who wants to make a difference in the community. I've got a lot of time to sit down and listen to him. I've heard his story quite a number of times. Even, you know, most people will have heard of the story when when they were up on the farm and a local pub wanted some scampi. So he phoned him, "Have you got any scampi, Brian?" And Brian said, "Yes, got plenty of scampi here." And he said, "Well, when do you need it?" 10 minutes ago. He's just taking the order, you know, and Brian going to the freezer and getting in the car and taking it down to the pub, you know.
Wow.
That's incredible customer service.
That is incredible.
It is. But that's an owner of a company doing that. Okay? And the challenges for entrepreneurs is when you grow your business, that you are able to pass on that enthusiasm for the business to those who work with you. And I believe the only way that happens, and how I believe how that is happening in Castell is that consistency all the time. You have, it's very difficult not to be present, because as things grow, you have to grow your team, and you have to enable them to grow and take ownership as well. But I feel you should never really step away. You should always be there and always be a consistent person to show them, that just because you're not there continually, that you're not interested anymore. And when you are there, you show you're the same person who was there when you were all the time. So in my role now I would say for about 6 years, when the bowling alley first opened, I was on site, all the hours that were there. I'd been out and doing as much as I could. But these days, I would go in maybe 2-3 times a week. But when I am there, I'm consistent to what I do. And looking at O'Brien, what he's done in Castell, and obviously the company's grown massive compared to where they were to start. He's been a great inspiration to me.
Wow. I'd love to have him on the podcast. I think Castell, incredible family business based in Wales, has got a heck of a story. And I'm sure during lockdown, that would have been a huge challenge for them, overcoming that, because their customers were shut.
Yeah,
so to see them still standing is incredible. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for coming on today, Paul. Diolchgar I ti dod man hyn a rannu stori Xcel, a rannu stori ti. I don't know why I've gone in Welsh, but I'm talking Welsh. And I think it's safe to say that the Xcel Project, as well as the church, is indeed reaching lives. What's the saying?
Reaching people, changing lives.
I nearly got there. Reaching people, changing lives. And to see that, people spending money in the bowling alley, whether it's eating food, having a cup of coffee, or bowling with friends, that money is going into projects that are having a massive, significant influence in the community of Carmarthen. And there's a fair play, credit where credit is due. Your hard work has paid off. And you're not going into retirement just yet. There's a lot of more work to do.
Not yet, lots more to do.
But Paul, if somebody in the community needs some support, needs to reach out, whether that's debt advice or whether that's in need of furniture or engaging with the project, or even want some no more, maybe they want to volunteer, how can people find out more about the Xcel Project?
The best place they can go to is www.xcelprojectcymru.co.uk. You go to that. From that website, you can post, or you can go to all the other websites. Or you could go to www.towychurch.co.uk. And again, in the same place, it helps you go to all the other websites, and it helps you access maybe the help and support you from there.
Keep doing what you're doing. Gadw fynd, because these people need someone to love them and value them. And that's exactly what you guys are doing in Xcel. So thank you for what you're doing there.